Dune Sea. We're going to wander a vast desert where the dunes are pale as unglazed porcelain, and when the wind moves just right, the sand hums in long, low notes. It is a wide, quiet place of gentle slopes, slow light, and small lives that carry on with soft precision. The desert begins as a broad bowl of sand that rises in clean curves to every horizon. The sand is not white, but a softened cream that picks up the color of the sky and wears it lightly. In the morning it feels cool under the air, and it looks sifted, as if a giant hand smoothed it in one patient pass. Footprints hold their edges for only a short while before the breeze rounds them away. The hum is faint at first, a thin thread of sound, like a faraway instrument warming up. Grains tap and rub, and whole slopes begin to vibrate. When the breeze lingers, the note lengthens and deepens, then fades. You can feel it in your ribs more than you hear it in your ears. The curves of the dunes catch this sound and bend it back into the sand. At the crest of a long ridge, the wind lays out a steady lip of moving particles. Tiny grains leap upward and skip along, each jump a little arc, each landing a whisper. The ridge sharpens, the slip face grows smooth, and then a trickle begins down the leeward side like spilled flour. The trickle gathers into a sheet, then rests again, showing a new skin. If you run your fingers over it, the sand slides away in a thin shine, cool near the surface, warmer a finger's depth down. The shadow of your hand looks blue against the pale slope. From here you can see other ridges, lined with the same wind fringe and slow avalanches. They appear to move only if you keep still and watch the same edges. The hum is a little stronger now, and the ridge under your feet answers with a soft tremor. A beetle crosses the face of the dune at a slight angle, careful not to sink. Its body is glossy, the color of dull pewter, and its legs stamp neat dimples in the sand. It pauses to lift its forelegs and test the air, then continues, weaving around a stray sprig of dry grass. A small track lines the path behind it, like a stitched seam. When a tiny rivulet of cascading grains approaches, the beetle angles uphill and waits until the slide ends. It knows these surfaces and the way they move. Farther down, another beetle lies on its side. But when the breeze freshens, it is righted by a small curl of sand and goes on. The whole crossing takes longer than it seems at first glance. When the beetle reaches a pocket where the sand cups into a shallow hollow, it burrows with quick kicks and disappears. Near the foot of the slope, a pale lizard lies half buried, with only its eyes and the top of its head above the surface. The scales on its back match the colour of the dune so closely that you see it only when it blinks. It waits without twitching, letting the warmth soak into the thin bones of its face. Flies drift near, cutting slow ovals in the air, and the lizard's eyes follow them by inches. When one buzzes too close, the lizard moves so fast you almost miss it. Sand sprays in two small fans, and the lizard is back where it started, this time with a dark speck struggling in its mouth. It chews with short, efficient bites, and then swallows. The wind covers the tiny scatter its leap made. The hum rises at the next ridge, and the lizard tilts its head, listening to the ground, as if it were listening to a neighbour's quiet radio. Far off, a line of low posts stands half buried, their tops painted a colour that once was red. The paint has flaked away in thin scales that lie at their base, like fish scales, dull and chalky. Between two posts hangs a loose wire that sings a higher, thinner note when the wind picks up. A faded cloth flag wraps the wire and unwraps again at random, as if it can't decide. Beyond the posts sits a small weather box on metal legs planted deep, its louvers grey with dust. Inside, a strip of paper ticks forward, and a pen draws an even line that wobbles when the gusts arrive. The pen arm twitches whenever the sand hums near a certain pitch. No one is here to watch, but the machine is steady. Its little door grits when it moves, and a lizard tail has left a signature of loops below it. Close to midday, the light opens wide and flattens every outline into clear, simple shapes. The dunes throw short shadows, dark wedges laid at their feet. Air shivers above the pale slopes, and mirages begin to gather on the low flats, pooling like glass. The humming deepens with a strange fullness, as if another voice has joined. When the breeze stops, the sound does too, but a kind of echo stays in your chest. The sand itself smells clean and faintly mineral, like worn stone. If you cup some in your hands and let it spill, it runs as a single stream, then divides, then unravels into threads. The grains are rounder than you expect, like tiny pearls of glass that have lost their shine. They click together very softly, the way beads might. A small caravan moves far out to the east. 4 camels and 3 people walking with rope in hand. The camels' steps are patient and long, and their feet make prints that close in slow motion behind them. The people wear loose cloth that shields them from glare, the cloth shifting like low water with each step. One of them points to a notch between 2 dunes where the sand lies flatter, and they angle toward it. When they reach the notch, they stop to drink and share a round of dates. The camels chew with slow jaws, eyes half shut, lower lids sliding up like soft blinds. A tin cup passes from person to person, water sloshing thick against the metal. Their voices are quiet, almost swallowed by the wide air and the steady breaths of the animals. In a shallow basin, where the sand collects like flour in a mixing bowl, a tuft of coarse grass anchors the floor. The blades are stiff and a dull green where the roots find a trace of moisture. Between the blades, a white moth sits with wings folded, looking like another piece of dry plant. When the shade from a passing cloud drifts over the basin, the moth opens and closes its wings a few times, the motion crisp and exact. A pair of ants threads around the base, carrying a speck the size of a seed. Their path is a wavering line that always seems to find the smoothest ground. A tiny spider has strung one single line from one blade to another, and it thrums when the wind shifts. The grass hardly moves, but the web sings more than the plant does. When the basin fills with a short-lived rustle of sliding grains, the web holds. The hum nearby pushes a low tone under all of it, like a pedal note. The sky over the desert at noon is pale, and the horizon looks washed with light. Birds pass high overhead, small shapes that pivot in lazy arcs, then vanish. Once in a while, a distant jet draws a thin white line that turns into a soft stripe and then smears. The sun sits with no halo. It is just a bright coin that never flickers. On the sand, every small texture is sharp. The ripples on the stoss side of each dune fall into a regular pattern, each crest a few finger widths from the next. If you follow one ripple with your eyes, it wanders and splits, then merges again, like a line of handwriting. Your own shadow is dark and near, and your steps make hollow paths that vanish almost before you take the next. At the edge of a long slip face, you can kneel and watch avalanches form and end. A tiny spark of motion appears, hardly more than a change in brightness. The grains next to it begin to move, and the patch widens by a hand's breadth. The moving patch becomes a triangle that points downhill, its edges sharp and straight. Inside the triangle, the sand looks like liquid, sliding in sheets that cling to each other. Then, for no clear reason, the triangle stops. The last few grains continue for a second or two, and then the face is still again, new and unwritten. A low buzz tickles through the slope, as if the dune had cleared its throat. You can draw a finger line near the top and start another small flow. It runs true and then rests. The line you drew is gone, as if you were never there. A fox crosses the ridge near sunset, its coat the colour of toasted bread. It moves with care, choosing firm ground, as if it has walked this path 100 times. Its ears are large and wide, and they turn to the wind to catch small sounds. Every few steps it stops and listens, nose lifted, testing the air. The fox finds the faint trace of a beetle and follows it, paws placing themselves inside the old tracks. When the trail fades, the fox looks downhill, judging distance, then sits and waits. The light puts a pale outline along its ears and tail. The fox's breath shows only in the way its flank rises and falls. When the wind builds and the sand begins to hum, the fox lowers its head and closes one eye, as if measuring the pitch. By late afternoon, the colour of the dunes warms, and the edges of the ripples grow soft. The hum returns in waves, now low and steady, now pausing and starting again. On some ridges it is strongest, as if the dune has a favourite note. People in the caravan speak of dunes that sing two notes, one deep and one a little higher, trading turns. Here, the sound seems to slide between pitches without stepping. If you lie on your back and listen, you can tell the wind is not constant, but made of puffs and sighs. Each puff plucks the surface and lets it go. In the pause, you can hear your own heartbeat and the faint click of distant grains colliding. A gull-shaped cloud sails by, and for a moment you think you hear wing beats in the hum. On a gentle rise stands a small shelter built of slats and shade cloth. Its posts are buried deep and bound with wire, and the cloth throws a square of calm shadow on the sand. Inside the shade is a bench, a pail of water sealed with a tight lid, and a ledger with a stub pencil tied to it by string. The ledger's pages hold short, neat lines. Dates, times, wind directions, and notes like June A in song again, or grain flow quiet on Lee. A small brass bell hangs from a hook, and it rings softly when the wind turns. The shade smells faintly of warm rope and dust. If you sit long enough, tiny gnats gather and spin, then drift away. In the doorway, the sand keeps a straight edge for a few hours before it rounds into a shallow mound again. As the sun tilts down, a coolness starts from the surface of the sand and climbs into the air. Shadows of ripples lengthen and overlap, turning parts of the slope into a barcode of light and dark. The hum lowers into a tone you feel under your sternum. A tiny pale snake streams across the ridge and vanishes into a slip face, leaving a line like a waved ribbon. The first star pricks through while the sun is still above the far dune, and another star follows close by. The light turns from brass to straw to a clear, soft grey. The caravan has stopped somewhere beyond the next basin, and the camels have folded their legs and settled in with a sound like cushions set on a floor. A kettle clicks on a small burner, and the smell of tea drifts on the air as thin as smoke. Night on the Dune sea arrives quietly, without drama. The sky deepens until it holds every small light steady, and the horizon is a smooth ring between dark above and pale below. The sand releases its stored heat, just as steadily as it took it in. Your hands cool full first, then your forearms, then your face. The air tastes clean. The hum retreats, returning only in brief pulses when a breeze tests a slope. Somewhere, a small night bird calls a low two-note phrase, and then is silent. If you drag a hand through the top layer, it makes a soft hiss, a dry answer to the bird's sound. Your breath is slow and even, and the sand holds your weight without complaint. A long way to the north, a low rocky ridge interrupts the plain. The stone is not high, but it breaks the wind just enough to shape the dunes differently on its lee. They curl around the rock as if resting there. In the cleft of the ridge, the trickle of water sometimes gathers from a rare rain, then sinks again before the day is warm. The stone holds the memory of that water in a darkness that lasts longer than the shadow. Moss does not grow here, but a thin crust of lichen does, its pattern like cracked glaze. It crunches under a boot and then is still. A moth will rest on it for hours and never leave a print. The hum reaches this ridge as a rumour, soft and fragmented, but the stone answers with a faint buzz you can feel if you press your palm to it. Toward the west, the dunes fall into a wide pan where the sand is tightly packed by old winds. Here, the surface shows old tire marks from a small rover that passed once and then did not return. The tracks sit in the hard crust, like lines pressed into dough and then baked. A tidy square of aluminum glints from a shallow drift. It is a panel, no longer connected to anything, still clean as if washed. A plumb bob lies near it, half buried, its string worn through where it rubbed a sharp edge. Whoever used these tools measured the wind, perhaps, or tested the angle at which the sand would slide. A tag on the bob's head is stamped with numbers that are almost erased. The pan is quiet, but when a gust crosses it, the sound is higher, as if the hard ground sings a different part. Closer again to the soft central sea, an area of low hummocks makes a maze. Each hummock is a pile with a tuft of dry grass on top, like a dot over a letter. Between them run narrow alleys of slightly firmer sand. Here, the wind feels more complex, its gusts broken into swirls that tug at your sleeves and then let them go. A locust moves from tuft to tuft, wings making a papery buzz that stops when it lands. Its body is striped in pale tan and cream, easy to miss unless it moves. When it leaps, it carries a tiny plume of grains that wink in the light. A second locust answers from somewhere out of sight, and their calls overlap with the humming dunes, like two threads woven into one cloth. The maze ends at a broader slope that looks simple enough to climb.